Hello everyone, welcome back, and today we are going to discuss how to play the Slav defense exchange variation, and on the move number 5 we are going to play the move f3. In our previous video we discussed how to play the Slav defense exchange variation by looking at a game, but today we are going to discuss how to play the Slav defense, and on the move number 5 we are going to play the move f3. There was a comment on the previous video that please make the video on the Slav defense, and on the move 5 we play f3. So I decided to make the video, and here it is. And I can nearly guarantee that all of the viewers watching the video are, after watching this video, you are going to definitely consider to play this particular opening, and definitely going to score some points in your tournament games as well. So it's going to be fun. So let's check it out. So white, I have named ourselves as the one-shot subscriber, and the opponent whom we are going to crush with the white pieces is the random noob. So with the white, we started the game with 1d4, and our opponent replies with d5, c4, c6, and here we have c into d5. So this is the Slav defense structure. We take the Slav defense exchange variation, takes knight c3, knight f6. You can already end up in this position by different move order as well, like knight f6. Sorry about that. Like c4, d4, d5, c4, c6. You can even play knight c3, knight f6, and then you can also take. It leads to the same variation. So after knight f6, here on the move number 5, we are going to play the move f3, and definitely it is a very interesting sideline. You can definitely consider it. And the idea of playing f3 in this position is white wants to play e4 on the next move and trying to gather as much amount of center. So it's definitely a very logical approach. You want to play e4 on the next move and try to occupy the center. So after f3, there are 3 main moves for black to continue the position. I would say 3 playable moves. The best move for black is to play queen b6, and I guess this move can only be played if your opponent knows the theory, and it's pretty hard that in the club level or in the mediocre, in the amateur level, that the opponents is knowing this perfect theory of this f3 variation. Queen b6 is one of the moves, for knight to c6, which is one of the common natural move, I would say, and e6 is definitely a common move. So first discussing the bad move, then we are going to come up on the best move. First, discussing what happens if black goes for playing e6, which looks very logical. Black wants to develop the bishop and try to castle as soon as possible. So after e6, white is simply going to launch with e4. Here we have knight to c6. If black tries to capture the pawn, you can simply capture the pawn back, and this position is already good for white. Because after knight c6, you can play already a knight f3. White is already having a very beautiful center, and after bishop b4, trying to hit the knight. And on the next move, black wants to capture the pawn on e4. So here we are simply going to develop our bishop to d3. And all those who are going to capture the pawn is going to lose the queen eventually. So basically after bishop d3, your opponent have to castle short. And in this position, we are going to put our bishop to c2. Or even a powerful move can be e5. Trying to simply hit the knight. And after knight d5, we are already having a very powerful move in this position. Can you find the move? So feel free to pause the video and try to find the best move. Okay, so all those working with this interesting move, I would say bishop into h7, sacrificing the bishop on h7. And if you try to capture it here, knight g5 check, you can't capture because the knight is protected. And if king g8, it leads to queen h5, and it's kind of force mate. Or else you have to give the queen. And if your opponent tries to play king g6, now you can already play the move h4. h5 is already winning for white. On that edge, after h5, king h6, knight into f7, and with a check, your queen is going to hang. So that's it. So basically, the opponent has to move the king here, and after king h8, you can simply play the move queen to d3, defending the bishop and also protecting the knight. And after, in this position, the best move in this position for black is to capture the pawn on e5 by playing knight into e5. Basically, after knight into e5, it leads to queen h4 check, and black captures the bishop. So you must capture with the pawn, basically not allowing this queen because the knight is protecting the square. And after knight into c3, b into c3, queen into d3, bishop into d3, bishop into c3 check. We are going to play king e2, bishop into a1, bishop to a3, rook to d8 because the rook was attacked, and here rook into a1. And finally, this position is winning for white after the dust settles because of we have 2 minor pieces against rook and 5 pawns versus 4 pawns. So materially speaking, the material wise, the position is equal. But as you guys know, the bishop pair is extremely strong. And black pieces are not yet developed. So it gives a very pleasant position forward. So this is how you can continue the game. So going back, this is what happens if your opponent tries to capture the pawn. So if black continues with by playing knight to c6, not capturing the pawn, keeping the center or keeping the tension in the center, we are going to push the pawn to e5 on the next move, knight to d7, and after f4, white is having a very pleasant position in this position. White is going to play knight f3, bishop d3, short castle, and white is very comfortable. We are already having more space on center. So for example, if I make a sample line, bishop e7, knight f3, short castle, bishop d3, f6. If black tries to capture on the black is hoping that we must capture, and after knight f6, it gives black some counterplay. But here we are simply going to castle, and after takes, this position is already way better for white, I would say, because e6 pawn is extremely weak compared to the d4 pawn, and white can definitely look out for some serious attack on the king side. Black position is, I would say, very uncomfortable compared to white. White can play bishop e3, queen d2, rook f2, rook f1, moving the knight to somewhere, perhaps e1, or perhaps there could be ideas of h3, knight h2, and attacking on the king side. So it can be an idea. So this is what happens if your opponent goes for playing e6. You can easily get a very decent position. Coming to the second point, what happens if black goes for playing up the move knight to c6? Here we are again going to play the move e4, and capturing the pawn is kind of the best and the obvious move. If you push the pawn to e6, it leads to the same variation. So after e4, capturing the pawn makes more sense. And here we cannot capture the pawn basically because we lose the d4 pawn. So we must first push the pawn to d5, hitting the knight. The knight have to move. And kind of the obvious and the fourth move for the black is to put the knight to e5. And here we are going to capture the pawn on e4. White is already having a decent center space, decent space in the center. So after f into e4, black is going to continue the game by playing e6, kind of fourth move, I would say, trying to hit the center, because except e6 there is no other move. If you try to move if you try to continue the game by playing bishop g4, hit the queen, which is not a good move. White is simply going to play the move queen d4, hitting the knight, and the position is already extremely bad for black. If you try to move the knight somewhere like knight to g6, it allows e5, and I guess there is no need to discuss anymore because the knight is attacked, the bishop is attacked, and white wins the piece and eventually the game. e6, the most sensible try. Knight f3, knight into f3 is kind of the obvious move. Bishop d6 can also be a move trying to defend the knight. And after bishop d6, you can play bishop b5 check. But I would recommend in this position bishop to f4, which is a very interesting move, I would say. After bishop f4, your opponent is kind of forced to capture the knight, and after takes, bishop f4, queen f4, short castle, long castle, pawn takes, pawn takes. This position is equal compared to the if I compare this position in the engine, but in practical terms, I guess white is already better because of the pawn on d5. It's a pass pawn, 3 steps away from being a queen. And if I continue the game, for example, after pawn takes, if we make some random moves like bishop to g4, hitting the rook, white can simply pull the rook, and after rook c8, white can play king b1, and after queen f5, like bishop d3, white, like playing with white pieces is much more comfortable compared to the black, and like white can seriously start some attack on the king side. The position is very interesting to play from the both side, I would say. So this is what happens if black tries to play up the move bishop to d6. Now discussing what happens if black tries to capture the knight on f3, queen into f3, pawn takes, and here we are going to push the pawn to e5. Not capturing the pawn. Capturing the pawn leads to the equal position, but we want the position more interesting. We are going to push the pawn, asking black what he's going to do with the knight. And I guess the best move in this position for black is to play knight to d7 or even knight to e4 is a fine move. Knight e4, we are going to consider the knight to e4 because it is one of the most common move, I would say, one of the most natural approach. After knight e4, bishop to b5 check, bishop d7, rook f1, a very interesting move here. Hitting the f7 pawn, and it's a one move mate. So if you try to make a random move like queen e7, it leads to knight d5, and black is completely lost. So the only move for black to survive in this position is to play f6. You can't even try to play a move like f5 because of queen into f5. You can't capture the queen because the bishop is pinned. f6 is the only move in this position, and now comes ef6, knight into f6, the only move. Again, you can't capture with the queen because again bishop d7, king d7, queen g4 check loses the queen, and if you try to defend it, rook f7 check, and like it's sooner or later game losing for black. So you have to capture with the knight, and here we have queen e2 check, queen. And here the only move for black again is to play the move queen to e7. You can't even play the move bishop to e7 because of rook into f6. Boom. You have to capture with the pawn, queen h5 check, and sooner or later it's going to be mate for black after queen d5 check. And here bishop e6, queen into e6, and the game is over for black. A beautiful mate, I would say. So coming back, you have to play queen e7, and after queen e7, bishop into d7 check. And here's my again question: what are you going to play with the black piece? If you're playing with the black pieces, what are you going to play in this position from the black side? Are you going to capture this bishop with the king or with the knight? Okay, so all those have came up with this move. Knight into d7, definitely it looks one of the most natural moves to continue the position, but it is the wrong move. The best move in this position for black is to capture with the bishop, which isn't at all, I would say, natural. The natural move is to capture with the bishop, knight, but now it comes with bishop e3, knight f6, long castle, queen d3, king b8, king b1. If queen d6, like this position is already winning for white, I would say, because black position is all bad compared to the white's pleasant position. And if you try to play a move like queen e6, trying to open up the dash for bishop, now come knight g4, h7 is hanging, p6, rook c1, the knight is coming on to c7, and after a couple of moves, I guess this position is completely winning for white, and black is completely crushed. So yeah, that's it. So this is what happens if black goes for this particular variation. Now let's discuss what happens if black goes for the move queen to b6, which is kind of the best move in this position from the black side. And after queen b6, white plays the move e4 in this position, still getting the center. Pawn takes, and in this position, the best move for black is to continue with the move e5, which is not at all easy to find if you are not prepared. Like playing the e5, you basically give up the pawn, knight g4. White can still defend it by playing queen e2. The position is extremely fine. Playing queen c2 is also a sensible move, but queen e2 is the best. You can also play queen c2 though, because it opens up the bishop. And after bishop e6, the game is fine. And if you try to play a move like queen e2, which is the best move, here again, like after bishop e6, white can continue with knight f3. If knight is c6, we simply have h3, hitting the knight back, like if knight into pawn, we simply have knight into pawn, knight into knight, and bishop to e3. The position is fine for both the sides. The position is equal, so there's no issue. And after queen c2, if I take the move like bishop to c5, the idea is to play bishop to f2 check, or even knight f2 looks very pleasant for black, I would say. But bishop c4 ends up with knight d5, and the white is actually better in this position. You won't believe, but after knight d5, the queen is attacked, and if you try to play with bishop f2 check, king d1, and this position is still winning for white because of queen d8, h3, bishop into g1, rook into g1, knight into pawn, bishop f4 hits the knight, knight to c6, takes, bishop to b5 check, bishop d7, knight to c7 check, king move, and here queen check, king move, queen into e5, bishop takes bishop, it's a check, king e1, and basically the rook is hanging and the knight. So basically in the end, after the dust settles, white is going to be at least an exchange up or a piece up. So this was the Slav defense exchange variation on the move number 5. We play the move f3. It is definitely one of the most interesting variation, one of the most interesting sidelines in the Slav defense exchange variation. And the interesting point here is that after d4, after queen b6, after takes, playing e5 is definitely not a natural move. So basically, there are some sidelines, like e5 is definitely not a natural move in this position. If you try to take a move like knight to c6, which looks more of a natural move, it comes with e5, knight to d7, knight f3, e6, trying to open up the bishop. Here, this position is already good for white because of like bishop e2, short castle, bishop e3. And here, if e6, which looks more natural, knight f3, knight c6, e5, knight to d5, putting the knight at the center, which looks more practical. Bishop to c4, hits the knight, bishop b4, pinning up the knight. Here, queen d3, a very good move from the white side, defending the knight and the pawn. Short castle, knight to e7 is one of the moves. H6 is also one of the moves. Because the position is so bad for black, it's so cozy inside that I don't see any good move for black. So if knight e7, let's check knight g5. Simply mate in 1. And if you try to play a move like g6, it's going to be knight ge4. It's going to be sooner or later a mate, because there is no way for black to escape now. It's completely winning for white. And if you try to play a move like h6, which I guess looks more practical, here comes a3, asking the bishop the question whether he wants to capture. I guess capturing is one of the most natural idea. And after queen c7, the idea is to play b6, bishop b7. Now we are going to play bishop to a2, or even bishop b3 is fine. Many of you must be thinking, what is the idea of white? Perhaps the idea is to play c4, hit the knight. It can be an idea, but the main idea is bishop to b1 and simply looking for the mate. If g6, bishop into h6 is already losing for black, you have to play f5, but now comes, sorry about that. After f5, we have e into f6, knight into, knight h4, bishop b7, rook into f6. And the game is over. Basically, the idea of rook into f6 is to remove the protection of h7 squared from the queen. And after rook into f6, if g into f6, still defending the h7 square, now comes bishop into h6. So rook f7, check. And sooner or later, it's going to be a mate. I guess you can definitely convert this position. For example, who are not able to convert this position, bishop f4 is winning, hitting the queen. And if you try to move the queen somewhere like, let's take, the queen is kind of trapped. Let's take queen to d8. Here comes queen h3 check, king move. And it doesn't matter where. If here, queen h6 check, and it's mate. So this is the whole, I would say, the Slav defense exchange variation on the 5 On the move number 5, you play the move f3. It's a very interesting sideline. You can definitely check it out and try out in your games. I can guarantee you that it is going to help you score some decent points in the tournament. Because f3 is definitely not a line which is that much popular. In the many of the players don't know that queen b6 is the best move, and after takes checks, that e5 is the best move. Definitely, it's not a well-known opening. So you can definitely play this opening and score some decent points. So I hope that you guys have loved this video, and if you did, and if you learned something new, then make sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel if you're new to our channel, and make sure to share this video with your friends so that your friends can also be as powerful as you guys, and there would be some tough competition between you guys. So I hope you guys love the video, and I'm going to come up with these interesting videos like this, and you can comment in the comment box on what topic do you guys want me to make the video. I'm going to come up with that video. So I'm going to see you soon. Till then, stay tuned and keep watching One Shot Chess.